If you stepped into my kitchen right now, you would probably see exactly what happens this time of year on a garden homestead. The counters are covered, the baskets are overflowing, and every corner seems to have another piece of summer waiting to be used. There are fresh tomatoes, zucchini, squash, cucumbers, peppers, green beans, herbs, and berries everywhere. It is the kind of abundance that every gardener dreams about, but it can also become overwhelming very quickly. Because when the garden starts producing, it does not slow down just because you are busy. One day you pick a few zucchini, and the next morning they look like they doubled in size overnight. You harvest a handful of cucumbers, and suddenly you have enough for sandwiches, salads, and pickles for the entire neighborhood. The tomatoes start ripening all at once, and before you know it, you are trying to figure out what to do with more fresh produce than your family can possibly eat. That is why preserving your summer harvest is so important. The goal is not to spend every waking hour in the kitchen. The goal is to capture that fresh garden flavor now so you can enjoy it months later. Today, I want to share some of my favorite simple ways to preserve summer produce. These methods are practical. They do not require an entire day of work, and they help make sure none of that hard-earned garden food goes to waste. One of my favorite preservation methods is blanching and vacuum sealing vegetables, especially green beans. Green beans are one of those crops that can quickly become overwhelming. When they are ready, they are ready. You can go outside one morning and find a whole basket waiting for you. The first thing I do is prepare the green beans by washing them and trimming off the ends. Then I give them a quick blanch in boiling water. Blanching is a simple process, but it makes a huge difference. It helps preserve the color, texture, flavor, and nutrients of the vegetables. For green beans, I usually leave them in boiling water for about 2 to 3 minutes. Right after that, they go straight into an ice bath. This stops the cooking process immediately and helps keep them crisp. But there is one important step that many people skip, and that is drying. Before freezing, the green beans need to be completely dry. If you put wet vegetables into a vacuum-sealed bag, that extra moisture turns into ice crystals, and over time it can affect the quality and texture. I spread them out on a clean towel and let them air dry. Sometimes I gently pat them dry to speed things up. While they are drying, I can move on to another garden task, or simply take care of other things around the house. Once they are completely dry, I portion them into freezer bags, vacuum seal them, label them, and put them in the freezer. I love this method because it gives me garden fresh green beans during the colder months without spending hours pressure canning. Another vegetable that always seems to multiply overnight is zucchini. If you have ever grown zucchini, you know exactly what I mean. You check the plant one day, and everything looks normal. Then you come back the next morning and somehow there is a giant zucchini hiding underneath the leaves. When zucchini gets large, I usually do not slice it. Instead, I shred it. Shredded zucchini is incredibly useful because it can be added to so many recipes. I use it for zucchini bread, muffins, pancakes, casseroles. I simply grate the zucchini, portion it into freezer bags, flatten the bags, and store them in the freezer. One thing I personally like to do is freeze the zucchini with all of its natural moisture. I do not squeeze the water out before freezing. When I am ready to use it, I thaw it and then remove the extra moisture depending on the recipe. For baking, this works especially well because you can control the texture right before adding it to your batter. Summer squash can be preserved in a similar way. I like to slice it, blanch it quickly, cool it down in an ice bath, dry it, and freeze it. Later, it is perfect for casseroles, roasted vegetable dishes, soups, and side dishes. There is something really satisfying about opening the freezer in the middle of winter and pulling out vegetables that came from your own garden. It is like opening a little piece of summer. Now, when it comes to berries, especially blueberries, there are so many options. During blueberry season, sometimes we are harvesting buckets full. Fresh blueberries are amazing right out of the garden, but they can also be preserved in several different ways. For the berries we want to save, freezing is one of the easiest methods. I simply clean them, remove any unwanted berries, place them into freezer bags, and store them for later. Frozen blueberries are perfect for smoothies, muffins, pancakes, breads, oatmeal, and desserts. Of course, there is nothing wrong with enjoying them fresh too. They make an easy snack, and they are wonderful on top of breakfast foods. Another favorite way to preserve blueberries is making homemade jam. There is nothing quite like opening a jar of homemade blueberry jam months after the season has ended. But making jam does take more time, so when life gets busy, freezing is a simple and effective option. Now let's talk about cucumbers. Cucumbers are another crop that can become almost impossible to keep up with. For a while, you may find yourself eating cucumber sandwiches every single day because there are just so many available. And honestly, that is not a bad problem to have. But eventually, you want some variety. And that is where preserving comes. One of my favorite ways to preserve cucumbers is making homemade pickles. Pickling is wonderful because you have options depending on how much time you have. If you have a full afternoon, you can make traditional canned pickles using a hot water bath method. These become shelf-stable and can be stored in your pantry for months. But if you are short on time, refrigerator pickles are incredibly easy. Simply slice your cucumbers, add your favorite spices, pour a hot brine over them, seal the jar, and place it in the refrigerator. After a few days, you have crisp, delicious pickles ready to enjoy. Both methods are wonderful, and they each have their place depending on your schedule. Cucumbers and tomatoes also make amazing fresh dishes during the summer. One of our favorites is a homemade garden pico de gallo. It is such a simple way to use up extra produce. Fresh tomatoes, cucumbers, herbs, peppers, and seasonings come together into something that can be added to almost anything. We use it on salads, wraps, meals, and snacks. It is one of those recipes that makes you appreciate how amazing fresh garden food really is. Another easy summer meal we love is cucumber wraps. Thinly sliced cucumbers, fresh garden peppers, herbs, and a creamy spread wrapped together make a quick lunch or picnic meal. It is simple, refreshing, and it uses ingredients that are growing right outside the door. One of my favorite things about growing your own food is discovering how many different ways you can use the same ingredients. A single zucchini plant can provide meals, baked goods, side dishes, and freezer storage. A cucumber harvest can become salads, pickles, wraps, and fresh toppings. A tomato harvest can become sauces, salsas, canned goods, and fresh summer meals. The possibilities are endless. We also love preserving herbs because they add so much flavor throughout the year. When basil, rosemary, dill, and other herbs start growing faster than we can use them, we find creative ways to save them. One of my favorite things to make is homemade sourdough bread with garden herbs mixed right into the dough. Adding basil, rosemary, or other fresh herbs creates such a beautiful flavor. Sometimes I even add shredded zucchini into bread recipes. It adds moisture and gives the bread a wonderful texture. There is something special about making food from ingredients that you grew yourself. It connects you to the seasons. It reminds you of the work, patience, and care that went into growing that food. Summer harvest is not just about having extra vegetables. It is about creating memories, feeding your family, and building a connection with where your food comes from. The best part is that preserving does not have to be complicated. You do not need fancy equipment or endless hours in the kitchen. Sometimes the simplest methods are the best. A freezer bag, a vacuum sealer, a jar of pickles, or a batch of homemade bread can help you enjoy the garden long after summer is gone. So if your counters are overflowing with zucchini, cucumbers, peppers, tomatoes, berries, and herbs right now, do not feel overwhelmed. See it as an opportunity. Take a little time to preserve what you can. Save those flavors for the colder months. Create meals that remind you of warm summer days and the hard work you put into your garden. There is truly nothing better than enjoying food that traveled only a few steps from your own backyard to your kitchen. I hope these ideas inspire you to make the most of your summer harvest and find simple ways to preserve the abundance around you. Whether you freeze it, can it, pickle it, bake with it, or enjoy it fresh, every bit of that harvest is a gift. And there is nothing more rewarding than sharing that gift with the people you love.